Australia the last couple of years, anywhere between about maybe 2/3 to 3/4 of the sectors that are most likely, that are receiving the most funding, are sectors that largely rely on these really deep knowledge ventures. They're things like climate change, biotech and health tech, robotics and IoT, and increasingly now in the last year, right, AI and big data. And even as AI gets easier to sort of plug and play, I actually don't think that takes away from our need to be really thoughtful and robust and strategic in how you deploy it, because that is going to be your differentiator, right? So I think the investor appetite is there, and the public appetite is there too. That's represented in, amongst a variety of initiatives, the $1.6 billion currently sitting in Australia's Economic Accelerator, which is specifically earmarked to support university industry research commercialization, right? And yet, despite all this, we're still not seeing quite as much of this flow into the tech sector or Australia's economy as we all sort of collectively want and need. And that's what motivated us to start this pathway as being one initiative to help bridge that gap. So the Entrepreneurial PhD is a PhD. It is rigorous. It marks you out as a world expert in your field. It's also, the entrepreneurial part, it is specifically designed around you and a problem that you've identified for your idea or venture. It is customized. No two are ever going to be the same because y'all aren't working on the same ideas and ventures, right? It is about helping you to develop maybe the evidence and the data that you need to be able to understand the scope and the parameters of the problem you're really facing. It might be about helping you to develop new technology. It might be about helping you to validate or develop an implementation framework for something you're already working on. And throughout all of that, it's about getting you one-on-one dedicated mentorship with global experts, access to UTS's advanced facilities, access to our networks, whether that's UTS startups, whether it's Tech Central, whether it's our other global networks, so that at the end of it, you and your venture have that deep expertise, right? That defensible IP, the credibility to go to investors if that's what you want to do, the legitimacy for your users and your market. And I think, as I kind of think about it as well, above and beyond all of that, your own confidence in your idea and your model and your product, because you have tested it rigorously to the highest standards. You have that confidence to stand behind what you're doing. And it's not, again, sort of wishy-washy thought leadership, which all of us on LinkedIn are all thought leaders, and I too am a thought leader, and I'm very proud of that. But this is really, really putting a lot of heft behind what you're doing. And as Murray said, it's free for Australian citizens and PR, and for New Zealand PR or citizens as well. So there's that. I think, though, that really the most effective, I can't wait for you to guys hear some of the stories from the people who are already coming through the program and how it's really transformed for them. So I'm going to stop talking now. Just say I'm really excited that you guys are here. I'm going to hand over to you because I think you're going to introduce Ian, right?
Yes.
Amazing. Thank you.
Before you sit down, before we clap, the first time I heard about the ePhD was when you were presenting it at a Friday Confessions. So this is like a weekly recurring event at UTS Startups. And as you were presenting the ePhD, I promise you, it felt like you were talking to my soul. You were like, are you working on an innovation? I was like, yes. Are you struggling to find the credibility? Yes. You know, you could be doing this PhD that gives you bada bing, bada boom, this, that, this. And I'm just like, oh, this is what I need. And let me tell you, it delivered on absolutely everything that you said during that first Friday confession. So thank you. Now we can give you a round of applause.
Amazing. Thank you. Yes. No. I think the thought I will leave you on, and thank you for that. Mona always makes me feel really good about myself, so I really appreciate that. But I think that this is such an exciting opportunity, and it's not the right thing for everybody, and that's okay. But it will transform you, and it will transform your venture, and it's a really, really exciting opportunity for a lot of people, and I'm just so excited to help more people understand about it. So thank you, Mona.
So when I first ventured out into the world of algorithmic law, majority of people said that it was something that was impossible. There's absolutely no way that you could build your own model for the law. And the first person to ever believe in me, to ever take a punt and say, you know what, I think you can do this, I think you're onto something, was Dr. Ian Oppermann. You were the first person that believed that algorithmic law was possible before there was anything, when it was just an idea. So I'd love to introduce Dr. Ian Oppermann. He is a global leader in data and standards. He is the Commonwealth Data and Standards Chair. Please welcome Dr. Ian Oppermann. Thank you.
Hello folks, I'm from the government. I'm not here to help. Thank you, Mona, for that very kind introduction. I've got to say, Mona and Murray are two of my favourite people in the world, and UTS is one of my favourite universities in the world. I've not met Sarah before tonight, and not really actually met Sarah, but Deputy Dean is the hardest role in any university. They're actually required to genuinely work. I started a PhD a very long time ago, and tonight's not just about PhDs. Tonight's really about this unicorn part, and this is a lovely, 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 bold statement on behalf of UTS. I started a PhD many years ago in 1993. Some of you weren't even born. So quickly check around the room. Not you, not you, not you. Most of you were not born in 1993. And I did that because I had graduated from Sydney University, first class honours degree, went to work for a company that doesn't exist anymore called OTC, and worked in store and forward facsimile. Yeah, it was that exciting. I resigned after 6 months and went back and did a PhD, and I started working on 3G mobile communications, the stuff they turned off last year. I helped invent some of 3G mobile communications. They turned it off last year. The point about doing a PhD in those days was just because you were curious. And of course, what I did was start a company. I started a company to prove that my PhD was actually useful and I could commercialise what I'd done. And it led me on this incredible journey of looking at how I could actually change the way people thought about technology, how I could change the way Australia thought about mobile communications. We had GSM, 3G was coming. I know I'm talking ancient history to you. But I went through the process of creating a company, 25 employees. Every single customer I had was in Europe. And I got on a plane and I flew to Finland and back, 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off, 2 weeks on, 2 weeks off for 6 years, which is not good for anything. It's not good for the environment, it's not good for your health, it's not good for your relationships. It was really hard. And at the end of a certain period of time, 6 years of doing that, I thought, you know what? I'm leaving Australia. I am never, ever coming back to Australia. And so I went to Finland, and I went and worked in Finland on 4G and then 5G and such and such and such. I eventually did come back to Australia. And Australia changed while I was away. What changed was, we're now talking genuinely about not just one or two amazing success stories from Australia, but we're now talking about a unicorn factory. We're now not talking about there's no venture capital in Australia, there's no entrepreneurialism, there is no structure and framework to help support people who want to take their idea and passionately innovate. Now there is. The ePhD, honestly, when I heard about it, I thought, I could do another one. I could squeeze in another PhD, but I work for government, so there's actually not that much time. I could possibly do another one. The world, Australia has changed so much. We have the talent, we have the capability, we have the funding, we have the dreamers, the doers, and the dollars talking to each other, recognising each other, and working together to make magic happen. Unicorns are magic. But it comes from those three basic ingredients: doers, dreamers, and dollars, spending time with each other, learning each other's language, understanding each other's perspective, and then letting the magic happen. Sometimes it happens accidentally, but when the factory starts to work and brings people together and creates the framework, then really systematically good things start to happen. So it's fabulous that you're all here tonight. It's wonderful that you're dreaming along with the rest. Some of you are doers, I'm sure. Some of you, maybe some of you have got dollars. Anyone got dollars? Okay, we need to work on that. but there are certainly lots of dreamers and doers in the room. So thank you very much, and I'm really looking forward to the rest of the evening. Thank you, Mona.
Thank you, Ian. Okay, so we've spoken a lot about the ePhD, what the ePhD is, what kind of opportunities it awards you. For myself, the ePhD has given my business the credibility it deserves. The research. We've now been able to raise $1.2 million. We've just surpassed $1.2 million because we're taking, the road less travelled. But I want you to hear from other ePhD candidates. And the first ePhD candidate I'd love to introduce you to is Lynn Wood. Thank you, Lynn.
Thank you very much, Mona. And do I have your attention? Great, because this is really important. Just recently, my fellow ePhD student, and Moore, told me about the attention economy and how important it is. We all need to attract attention to be successful. And who's better than Mona tonight, bringing you all tonight to this wonderful event to tell you all about it. Well, my story started about 10 years ago when I was in Canada, and a guide said, I was on a ferry going over to Vancouver Island, and the guide said, promote what you love rather than bash what you hate. Promote what you love rather than bash what you hate. And that really resonated with me because I'd been travelling a lot, and I was seeing lots of ideas as solutions to many problems, but in the news, I was just seeing the problems, the negative news. So who here is sick of negative news? Negative news, it's so negative. And so I thought I had to do something about it. So I created a platform called Idea Spies and tested it on Facebook initially. In terms of the name for the platform, it had to have idea in it. We were sitting in a hotel to get the name. Idea, yes. And we thought, I was with a friend, and we thought spies. Now, spies, that's good. I spy with my little eye. But then that was before the Russian spies became really famous and well known. So a lot of people thought of it in terms of spies. But that said, we went on. It was a very popular platform. We had thousands of ideas that we shared in 19 topics, and we had many volunteers supporting it for a few years. We actually had AI. We're following AI ideas with AI for the last 7 years. But then generative AI came on board, and I thought, we need to develop it more. It needs more development, and I felt I really had to suspend it because we weren't getting the sort of traction we needed to make it sustainable. I actually thought it should be viral, these positive ideas that we're all interested in, but couldn't get through the negative news to make it viral and get more support. So after suspending it, I came across the ePhD, and that was at a creativity conference I was attending. And I, like you, I immediately thought, this is fantastic. This is exactly what I need to do. I need to go back and study why is there so much negative news, and how can we cut through it? So you can see that you've got to go through a lot of rigour when you do a PhD, and this is very different for me because I was like a person, very much a bullet point person. All the ideas that we were sharing were all expressed in 100 words or less. What's the idea here? Every innovation is based on an idea. And then I have to confront this. I have to go through the rigour of a conceptual framework. So you can see it starts off with alertness. We've all got to be alert. Like I was alert when I was on that ferry going over to Vancouver Island. Then you've got to pay attention. I paid attention to the guide who said, promote what you love. Hey, promote what you love. And then you've got to think, where are the positive ideas? You've got to find them. I'm doing research now with UTS students, and And they are defining, validating what's a positive idea, what's a negative idea. We've had 100 students already go through that process, because you have to do that. It's quite obvious, obviously. A positive idea is an entrepreneurial idea. A negative idea is a problem. So we'll be seeing how that relates to well-being, because what I want to be able to show is that it's an intervention to look out for the positive ideas that you all have and we're sharing and we're talking about tonight, improves your well-being. If I can show that more people, I'm hoping more people can look at them. They're often in the negative news. You just got to look for them in the negative news somewhere. They're little gems around the place. So that's what I'm doing. I'd love you to, while I've got Idea Spies asleep, like Cinderella, I'd love you to join the Idea Spies LinkedIn group if you haven't already. So hands up, anybody who's in the Idea Spies LinkedIn group. And Lina just joined tonight. Thank you. So please go on there and join, because it's all about positive people with positive ideas, and I'd love to share them with you, and I'd love to help share your ideas. And that's why I asked Mona if I could go first amongst the group, so you would pay attention to their ideas, because they've also got very interesting and innovative ideas. Thank you.
Before you leave, you mentioned, I'm going to ask you one more question. We had a conversation about ID Spies, and again, I'd love for everyone to scan the QR code and join ID Spies. It's on LinkedIn. It's a free thing to do. You are what you ingest, right?
Yeah.
So I remember you were telling me about a statistic about how many more positive ideas you need to ingest to remove the effects of that negative brain rot, doom scrolling. What was that number?
Yeah, it's fascinating. There's research that shows for every negative idea, thought that you have, you've got to find 3 positive, because the negative ones are so strong and they last. You've got to have the 3 positive to make up for them. So it means looking for 3 positive ideas to make up for any negative news that you read. I'd also like to mention Martin over here, who's my wonderful supervisor. Put up your hand, please, Martin. So it's like Ian. Because you're absolutely right, Mona. You've got to have confidence in what you're doing. And when it's not going viral, you're thinking, what's wrong? I've got all these great people around me. And it was Martin who had the faith. And we've actually got a meeting tomorrow with 3 people who are interested in bringing Idea Spies to life as a platform for PhDs.
Love it. Thank you. Can we give Lynn a round of applause? Now, the first thing we introduced you to was positive ideas. You are what you ingest. You are what you read. So the challenge from this first presentation is you need to read 3 positive ideas, or read 3 positive things, so that you can get rid of all that nasty negativity in our lives, all right? Awesome. So I'd love to introduce our next speaker, our next ePhD candidate, and more. Anne, would you like to tell us what you're working on?
I will. Thank you, Mona. How exciting. Wonderful to see everybody here tonight. Thank you for coming along. I'm Anne Moore, and I'm going to tell you in the next 3 minutes, roughly, what I'm doing in the ePhD program. Before I begin that, a little bit about my background. I've spent 4 very happy and fruitful decades in people and culture. I've had 3 startups, and I've embarked on this PhD program. My background was social science, technology, the future of work, and recently psychology. So to talk about the program just very briefly, I did a lot of courting in preparation for commencing my PhD. And I just want to say that when I walked into a room, thanks to the invitation from Murray, and I met Martin and Sarah and my cohort, I thought, this is the room I need to be in. So, very exciting. I'll tell you now about the work that I'm actually doing. So there's some good news and some bad news in this, with a happy ending, I hope. So the situation is that most of us recognise now that we're in a world beyond VUCA. Is everybody familiar with the expression VUCA? Yeah? So a volatile, uncertain, complex and ambiguous world. Well, we've left that behind and we've moved into a brand new world, which I'm going to say is hallmarked by being brittle, being anxious, being non-linear, and being, frankly, incomprehensible. Meet Barney. Barney. So we know that transitions are on the increase. We talk about individuals in transition. You may not be aware that over the next decade, it's anticipated that between 400 and 800 million people will be in transition. So we have a problem with that because we don't talk much about organisations being in transition. We talk about people being in transition. And we know that productivity and workforce participation is central to our economic prosperity, our social stability, and our individual well-being. So here's the catch. Organisations are largely still designed as mechanical structures. We design our organisations for hierarchy, central control, they're rigid, we use language like staff, officers, it's inflexible and basically designed on Roman armies. So what am I proposing? I'm asking whether or not we could look at a model where work is a living social system. An environment where we might have movement, openness, responsiveness and reorganisation as a response to constant change. Now, that might sound fanciful, but here's the deal. We need organisations and individuals that are going to be competitive and sustainable in a world of constant shift. So my research is based on science, technology, psychology, and some management theory. So I'm looking at complex systems, and I'm looking particularly at complex systems that sit in nature. Yeah. So how do we make this happen? I want you to think about this. Imagine the feeling of being in an organisation that is basically an environment where we're looking at composure in motion, clarity in complexity, and conviction in change. This is the model that I want to bring into the world so that we can remove ourselves from an environment that's stuck in a rigid format that's not going to serve us well. I want to ensure that each of us has a long-term livelihood where transitions and change support us rather than inhibit and interrupt our livelihoods. So that's the work I'm doing. If you're interested, please, Substack. If you'd like to participate in my research, please let me know or join me on LinkedIn to follow. Thank you.
Thank you. This is actually so important for every organisation. It doesn't matter how big or how small your organisation is. When we've empowered people to be able to move vertically, from my understanding, in the business, we're really supporting and setting up an infrastructure of support, collaboration, empowerment, and we see less people leaving businesses and less people being made redundant. Is that right? Love it. Thank you. Next, we have this firecracker of a woman, Anne-Marie Elias. Annie?
Thank you.
Can you please tell us about the amazing work that you're doing?
Sure. Thank you so much. I'm Anne-Marie Elias, and for my sins, I spent 36 years as a senior policy advisor to politicians on both sides of politics. I feel that I've always peaked early. I can see things before anyone else can see them. And Lina, you noticed that because 10 years ago I was talking about data as the new gold. 10 years ago, right? So I've always seen things before anyone else has seen them. The last recommendation I made to the Morrison government is they probably needed to think about an artificial intelligence or robotics levy or tax. They laughed at me. But trust me, some of you in here will be alive much longer than I will. Can you please remember that? And remember, it was proposed. So I don't know what it is. I really was so bad at mathematics my whole life. In high school I failed maths. At university I failed stats. But I learnt very quickly, even with ministers, even in government, you had to prove a business case. And a business case is all about data and metrics. So a few years ago I got together with a friend of mine and started Prime Life Partners. And we started looking at the data of how Australians are going to live, age, care and retire with sufficient income. And I built a data analytics tool called Adapt, and that's what the QR code is for. And it just looks at the 2019 and 2021 censuses, or 16 and 21, and it looks at just the 45 up. And I started to see patterns like this. That in 2021, the median rent was $420 a week and the median mortgage repayment was $2,100. It is a lot more than that now. Compare that to what was the personal weekly household and family income, and you start to go, how do people pay their mortgages? Right? And it's a lot worse now. The other thing is I started to see that about 32% of people are going to retire with a mortgage. And 33% of people aged 45 and up are renters. How much do you think you're going to need when you retire? $500,000? $500,000? $2 million. That was a wild range. But basically, up until this year, the Association of Super Funds only measured that you needed about 600 or 700 grand as a single person, or about 800 as a couple, with home ownership outright. I present you the increasing people retiring with a mortgage and increasing number of people who will be renters. So that data really scared me, and we started doing this work with Prime Life Partners, running workshops, talking about longevity, not ageing, because everyone wanted to talk about aged care. I don't want to talk about aged care. I want to talk about the fact that we're living well into our 80s and 90s now, and that requires additional income. And that requires additional thought. So my PhD is building the first longevity retirement security index for Australia, right? That will not just look at how much money you have, but it will look at your employment patterns. Because our super system did not configure women. It didn't configure the times women were going to be in and out of workforce. So women are still retiring with a lot less super, yet women live longer. So it's a conundrum. They also didn't consider casualisation of work. How many people are going to be in the same job for 40 years receiving a nice little stipend of superannuation? So I believe that sitting in UTS is critical for me. Thank you, Martin and Sarah, for everything that you've done to get me to this point. Hopefully I will be able to say that I'm a candidate in the business school to build this index. And this index is about predicting our security in retirement. And I don't think it's just going to affect women. I think it's going to be gendered and generational, but that's what I need to prove. Please come up and talk to me later. I'm more than happy to share more. Thank you, Mona.
Thank you. Honestly, I'm worried about this. I'm actually genuinely worried about this. I'm worried because I'm a woman and I've had 4 children, which means my super is pretty much peanuts compared to my husband's, who I love so much and adore, and is sitting in the crowd with the big afro right over there. Hey, babe. But no, this is this is a real huge problem. And I'm grateful that you've put your hand up to try and solve that problem. So thank you. Next up, we have Vibhu. Vibhu, can I welcome you to the stage, in the stage of you're talking about fintech and finance?
Yes. Hi.
Yes,
Thank
we
you.
all love money. Tell us more.
Super. So, all of you in this room give an average of $60 a year as card surcharges. When you buy your coffee, your groceries, $60 a year. That's the sort of average. Somebody probably giving hundreds, but that's what we pay every year as card surcharges. And that doesn't go to the tradie, it goes to the bank or it goes to the card network behind that. right? And collectively as Australians, we pay around $1.25 billion, and this continues to grow as card surcharges. Now, in the East, in the Eastern world, Singapore, Hong Kong, China, India, Brazil, Russia, Philippines, Thailand, Malaysia, there are now ways, scaled up ways where you can scan a QR code, money gets debited from your bank account and gets credited into the business's bank account instantly, as fast or perhaps faster than a card transaction. There are no surcharges. There are usually no fees for the small business accepting that, and that's the way it's done. In Australia, there is just one way, which is you pay with cards. It's great, it's fast, it's habitual, we love it. It works, it's safe. But the entire, half of the population now today pays with direct bank transfers, which are fast and, they are basically free. It's your money. There is no intermediary. There is no card network. Nobody involved there. So my PhD essentially is, and I've just come to Australia 2 years back. I got this, and I come from a payments background, and it kind of just puzzles me why it doesn't work here. And I did spend some time in the UK as well, and there are basically 4 places this doesn't work. It's the US, Europe, UK, Australia, and New Zealand, the proverbial West, where it doesn't work. And it's basically the card networks which are well entrenched here. And, it's a way of doing it, and that's the way payments work here. But my PhD essentially looks at examining why is it that it works in the East and it doesn't work here. Is it because we are resistant to change? Is it because the regulator doesn't have enough sort of, voice, or whatever it is? Or it's basically the bank lobby is very strong, or it's the platform economics, it's the design of the systems, interoperability, and a bunch of those dimensions. So I'm looking at all of that in my ePhD and really excited about it. And thank you, Sarah. Thank you, Martin, and lovely colleagues in my ePhD cohort. And I welcome all of you guys to experience it. It's a brilliant program. Thank you.
Thank you. I love that. I hate paying bank fees. Hands up who loves to pay bank fees? Oh, come on. That's a lie. Which brings us up to our last ePhD candidate, which is me. I'm Mona Chiha. I am the founder of Juris Techni. My ePhD is on algorithmic law. What is algorithmic law? Algorithmic law is the convergence of data science, of ethics, of credible legal data sets, but most importantly, there's human oversight, because technology is supposed to uplift humans, not try to push them down. So why is this important? What do we use algorithmic law for? Like, it just sounds like a whole bunch of fancy-ass words, right? No. We use it for legal research and data analytics. Right now, the way that our legal champions are advocating for us, the way that they're building out their legal strategies is very manual. It's a very time-consuming and resource-intensive process. I used to be a litigation funder, so I would know. So I thought, you know what? I need to find a way to find a technology that uplifts and supports those legal champions. My first prototype was that RAG-wrapped LLM. Everyone's on this hype about generative AI, but for legal research and data analytics, generative AI is just not fit for purpose. Why? Because it's a black box. We don't know what data has been ingested, we don't know what algorithms have been used, and we already know that it perpetuates algorithmic bias. So I don't know about you, but I'm not going to invest $1 million into a legal claim if I know the output, whether it comes from a product or a person, isn't very reliable or accurate. So we had the RAG-wrapped LLM. RAG means it's got like a really cool, clean database. So I thought, okay, how do we get rid of the Gen AI model, the LLM? And I thought, well, why don't we build our own? It's never been done before. In the beginning, people were like, oh, no, it's impossible, Mona, you can't do it. That's so cute, he's a little pat on the back. And I was just like, yeah, all right, watch me. I built the most amazing village around my research. I heard about the Entrepreneurial PhD. I put my hand up for it, and I was so lucky that I got into this program because I didn't go in as a regular, Masters of Research student. I came in as a founder. It's open to everybody. It's not something that is closed off because you didn't do a Masters of Research or you didn't come in the traditional way. And what did that do for me? It gave my business and my research the credibility that it deserves. To say to the people in the beginning, hey, Mona, algorithmic law can never exist. Well, actually, it does, and it works really well. So what are we doing with that? We're currently running a pilot with 27 large law firms and the Queensland District Courts. I'm also doing algorithmic legal classes because this information should be available to everybody. How do we navigate the law? How do we think in features and relationships? So my ask today for everybody in the audience is if you are someone who is from a legal background or a law student, scan the QR code and come join our Algorithmic Legal Foundations 101 classes that we're holding at the end of November. I have put a special discount only for today, but you can share it with your friends, I'll keep it open for a while. A 50% discount off our classes. So, what have we heard? We've heard amazing ePhD candidates talking about global issues that each and every one of us could be facing. We've spoken about what frameworks, what solutions that we're coming up with, and we're collaborating with the university, we're collaborating with the experts, we're collaborating with government, and it is wonderful. Pay attention to the people that are in this program. So next up, we have our panel. I'd like to welcome Murray and Associate Professor Martin Bliemel. Me, I'll be hosting. Thank you very much. Brian Lim and Lina DiMarco. Please, let's give them a big round of applause and welcome them up to the panel. I'll give you. Okay, I've got my questions over yonder. So before we get started, just in 30 seconds, can you introduce yourself and what brings you up onto this panel today?
Martin Bliemel, Director of Innovation. I was Associate Dean of Research for 4 years, and I facilitated other people's research with a big push towards research with impacts. I was also founded a couple startups, one of which was Deep Tech, and was really disappointed that there's so much amazing research that dies on the vine, that it just doesn't make it into market either because of founders or the market, improper intellectual property protection. So as an academic, I've had the benefit of being able to teach hundreds or thousands of students how to do this, and yet we've got this great irony that we don't teach PhDs, postdocs, and academics how to do this. Well, entered the Entrepreneurial PhD. Now we've got the opportunity to take everything we've learned on how to scale entrepreneurship education for undergrads and postgrads, fee coursework paying students, and doing it for the rest of, I guess, the knowledge-producing society.
Thank you. Brian?
Hello. Hello, everyone. My name is Brian Lim, entrepreneur for 10 plus years. I've raised money in Silicon Valley. I've sent stuff into space. I've annoyed more people than I want to admit, including venture capitalists. But I'm back here in Australia, currently building a new project where I have basically am indexing all the government funding opportunities, both locally and internationally, to make them accessible to people. And the short version being is, there's opportunity everywhere, but if you don't see it, how do you know? So the objective here is, let me show you where the opportunity is, so you can see how much there is out there to do the things you want to do.
Thank you. Lina?
My name's Lina DiMarco, and I'm the founder of Adamus Business Solutions. I'm actually quite boring compared to what everyone else is doing. So I have run a chartered accounting practice for over 20 years now. I am an SMSF auditor. have my own financial services license, and also the president of the Auditors Institute, which is a professional association for registered company auditors and SMSF auditors. Our practice generally services the small to medium-sized clients. Our office is based in Leichhardt. Pretty much it.
There is no boring in that whatsoever. And Murray.
And accountants are the most interesting people. They know what's actually going on. I'm Murray Hurps. Pleased to be here. I love startups and I love what you're doing. I love what everyone here is doing. Just pleased to be part of it.
Okay, so I have a series of questions. Murray, I might get started with you first. So, from your vantage point at UTS startups, what are some of the common mistakes that founders make when seeking funding too early or too late?
Okay. There's really interesting things happening at the moment. So there is this thing that is like a year or two old in terms of broad adoption of it within startups, the AI kind of revolution in startups. 10 years ago, people turned up to places like Fishburners with a tech co-founder and marketing person and design person. They needed funding for those, and so they talked to VCs, and the VCs said, hey, you need to be super ambitious, otherwise we're not going to talk to you, and that manufactured startups. And now it is different. There is like a bifurcation of startups where they're now either very small AI-enabled, getting to customers, doing really interesting things quickly, or they're more deep technology and they need a larger investment still. And I'd say the mistake people might make is assuming that every fund is set up for that. They have investment mandates from 5 years ago or whenever they were set up. They are not, I think, reacting to the opportunity that now exists, that either you are deep tech doing really interesting development of things and you need a bit more money, or you are very small and you probably aren't going to talk to them, but you're going to be a wonderful opportunity as well. So I think realizing that they're probably behind the ball on what is really happening across startups is maybe the mistake I'd point out.
So this leads me to my next question for Lina. Can you share with us what's one big red flag that you often spot on in early stage businesses that instantly scares off funders and how to fix it?
One of the biggest red flags that I see with some of my clients that are startups is the inability to separate business and personal expenses. So they basically, there is no proper accounting system, there's no proper record keeping. We have private expenses being paid out of potentially business funds. We don't have a proper payroll system. The founders obviously still need to live, so they're just drawing willy-nilly. And the problem that investors see with that is that there's no financial, I guess, clarity. You can't get a clean set of financial statements. There's no discipline. So it doesn't make you look very good. You know, there's no credibility and no trust in those initial phases of starting a business. If you can't manage it when you have almost no funds, how are you going to be able to scale? So, yeah, that would be one of the big problem areas.
Thank you for that. Martin, I might move on to you for the next question. How can academic projects, so we're speaking about startups, I see our academic projects as startups in themselves. So how can our startups or our academic projects, how do we position ourselves so that we're just as commercially viable without losing that research integrity?
Great question. I mean, the research integrity, you can kind of wear two hats, sometimes physically separated. I was just reading a biography on Alexander Graham Bell, and he did an amazing job of doing all those experiments, but really keeping all his technical, his protectable IP under lock and key, like literally under lock and key. So you can keep that stat aside. As you're pursuing an entrepreneurial PhD, there is a funny tension of you as a student, you own the IP. And that is like a key selling proposition for the entrepreneurial PhD. Then it can be a bit gray of whether your co-supervisor is contributing to the IP, and then it becomes more of a negotiation process of, okay, can you jointly publish the publication so they get the academic kudos out of it, but you can still find ways to own the intellectual property yourself so that you have, I guess, the freedom to operate across whatever market you want to pursue. It is interesting hearing, I guess the theme of this year is like how to raise capital or what to raise capital for. I'm also seeing people raise capital for the wrong reasons. One thing that you're raising capital for is to scale up. Well, okay, what are you scaling up for? Is it to scale up knowledge? Is it to scale up access? Is it to prototype? Guess what? You can do a lot of that in a university setting. Once you're in the program, you've got an email address, you've got a license to talk to any expert in that university, but often across universities too. And
it does. It opens so many doors and opportunities. Like when you come to people as a PhD candidate rather than as a small business, people do interact and engage with you completely differently. So there is a time where it can be too early or too late to raise. We know that it's important to think about what are the red flags that are sticking out, because if these red flags are sticking out to our accountants, who are our best friends, and our lawyers actually, can I go a little bit off script and ask Navneet Elfar to come up as well? Nav? So Nav is a commercial lawyer and litigator who also empowers small businesses and ePhD candidates like myself to set ourselves up for success, so that when we do go for those funding rounds, we've made sure we're not signing any predatory terms. We've made sure that we've really positioned ourselves and our IP in a way that protects the business from the legal foundations. So Nav, what's like one of the most important things that you would give legal advice to a startup or to a researcher as they're progressing for that funding journey?
So when applying for funding or raising funding, it's really important that you still maintain your confidential data. So yes, you're wanting someone to invest in your product, but you need to be able to ensure that your information or your proprietary assets are trademarked and protected before you go for funding. Secondly, when you go for funding, so as I mentioned, keeping things confidential. So if you are going to disclose something because an investor may be a bit hesitant or reluctant to advance the funds, unless they're able to see more or know more, then there's possibilities of getting NDAs signed. So that's something that you should always consider before even going to an investor as well. Being prepared to say, yes, I want your money, but okay, if you really need to see more than I've disclosed, here's an NDA and I can show you something further. So those are two things that you should be mindful of from the very onset before even going for funding.
That was really great and important advice that you gave me early on, because it helped me navigate through who to take money off and who not to take money off. So the one thing that I learned early on, thanks to your guidance, was don't accept dumb money. Like, just because the money is available, just because there's someone waving $1 million investment into your business, when you look further into the terms, you're just like, there is no way I should be signing this. And thank God for people like Navneet, because that actually saves businesses. So we know that we need to protect our IP. We know that we need to set up a strong legal foundation. We need to know our numbers. But other than going to investors and VCs, what other ways can we find opportunities where they're real opportunities? Not, there is lots of grants, right? But that doesn't mean that you're going to get that grant. How do you position yourself when you are looking at the grant opportunities, Brian, so that we actually have a chance at getting these grants?
That's a really good question, and I'll lead with 3 core points I found out. The first one is more than 90% of all grant awards that I've ever seen are collaborations. either with other companies. So you form a company, you have 3-4 people, you form a company, great. They want to see company-on-company collaboration. If you're not doing that, you're almost in the bucket of I'm not interested. That's the first thing. The second thing is, the government person who's actually doing the work doesn't actually know the industry very well until they've been in the role for a few years. So they're actually looking at who your customers are to validate for them whether it's worth funding your project. So it doesn't mean that you need to get money from them, but you need to demonstrate that the customers have gone, this is solving a pain point, a real one, and I'm willing to put money down, and the government will look at you. And the third one, and it's a little bit cynical but sadly true, governments don't fund innovation, they fund the increase of the taxpayer base, which therefore is about funding the creation of jobs. Think of it this way, if you were the person giving out money, do you want to get fired for funding a really innovative company that's high risk, or a slightly innovative company that everybody agrees that it's a safe bet? Yes. So if you're too innovative, you're actually marked down here. In the US, there are places, in Europe, there will be places where you can actually get funding. But in Australia, unfortunately, we don't get marked up for ultra-high innovative, right? We actually get marked down for it. So you've got to look like you're just ahead of the curve, but not on the bleeding tip of the spear. And then, people will pay more attention to you.
So position yourself and your company to be innovative, but make sure that translates into more job creation, right?
Yes.
All right. Awesome. Thank you. I think that is like a really key thing that we should know when we're applying for grants, because I've personally applied for some grants and not gotten them. I've gotten the R&D tax incentive, which was awesome. The early stage innovation company, it's this thing from the ATO, which Lina, I'm sure you're going to tell us about later. But there are a lot of things that work and a lot of things that don't work. So to listen to this advice is gold. So, Murray, you have literally seen, thousands of founders, right? You've seen so many founders navigate the whole funding environment, whether it's VC money, whether it's sophisticated investors, whether it's family and friends, whether it's grants. What separates the ones who get funded from the ones who burn out in the process?
Do you want the real answer?
Yes, we want we don't want
Are we recording? Are you watching at home?
Cut the recording.
Because this is like the sad part of startups, is if you're around for long enough, you will meet so many smart people that we're doing incredible things, and we're doing it in Sydney, and we're doing it at the wrong time or with the wrong co-founder or whatever else, and things get in the way and things don't work out, and you run into that person later and they're doing something else and they're still the same incredible person they were. But there is so much that goes into that successful fundraising that is not a predictable thing. So I think going in with the expectation that you can be the most amazing person in the world, and this building is full of the most amazing people in the world as far as I care, that's not enough. So it will be enough if you can find an investor that actually gets it, and it's a company that requires investment and it's aligned with the kind of thing that's in vogue at the time and everything else is coming together, and in that world that's going to be amazing and it'll be fine. But it's definitely not a certain thing. And I have the worst track record of anyone you can possibly pick up in terms of seeing people on day one and seeing what they turn into. Because on day one, they look completely different to what they look like a month later and 6 months later. That effectuation that entrepreneurs do of going through things and changing and changing and changing is just what they do. So I'd say that's really, that was terrible advice. So, hope for the best. Be optimistic.
So you don't
keep
know.
trying. Yeah.
So
Sorry.
pretty much, no, you did. You put out some really cool points. There's a lot of really amazing people who have really great ideas, but it's really about testing how long, excuse my language, you can put up with the shit and keep going and just get through those hurdles, right?
Yep.
Okay. So there is hope. There's hope. Martin, this one is for you. Now, when I started my PhD journey, I actually didn't know what other opportunities it would, like the doors that it would open for me. You spoke about like the collaboration, you spoke about the opportunities. One of the funding opportunities that I got from UTS was participating in a pitch called the UTS AI Accelerator Grant. And surprisingly, I was very surprised. I won. So there was 2 winners. We won $50,000 of grant money. Now, can you tell us a bit more about what other funding opportunities, because I don't think people know that you can get grants from universities. It's not just from the government. You know, that you can get grants from so many different places. But can you tell us more about like what other funding opportunities that UTS specifically, because I'm very biased and I love UTS, offers, you know, PhD candidates?
This is, I guess, a really good question. For me to answer this on behalf of all of UTS is a bit difficult because I don't know what's happening across every school and every faculty, and they all have their own pockets. But as a PhD student, generally your faculty or your school will have a little bit of a funding for the PhD student to get up and going on some experiments, some conference funding, a laptop, some basic stuff. Then it depends on what faculty you're in. So some of the sciences might have some science-specific things, like you have more expenses if you're running a biological lab than if you're just doing interviews. Beyond that, the ecosystem starts to escalate quite quickly, that you can get some seed grants around 10K. There's some research translation grants that are specifically about translating your research and having impact and documenting that impact to get that flywheel going. And once you've demonstrated impact, more people are likely to come to you for follow-on collaborations. There are things like the Strategic Research Accelerator, where the Central University then funds 1 or 2 postdocs to help get your research from TRL level 5 to 7, I think it is.
So wait, what's
TRL, Technology Readiness Level. UTS is also borrowing from the UK's British Council, which has redefined TRL to other disciplines as well. So there are TRL levels that came out of engineering and communication technology in particular, but they also apply for arts and creative media and other disciplines as well. So there are different ways to think about how close you are from blue sky research through to something that will actually make a difference on end users. And so you can put together a team to apply for these grants to get 2 or 3 postdocs who will then help you specifically advance your TRL level for your project over the next 3 to 5 years.
That is a huge investment, because I know from a small business perspective, my biggest expense is our team. It's not the technology, it's the people that you need, because technology requires people, which requires funding and opportunity to funding, so that you can build out these innovations. So we know there's all different places that we could find funding. We could find it from...
Can I just add to that briefly? I mean, that's just the stuff that's happening in universities. Then you've got a research office whose job it is literally to connect you to all these other funding agencies and help you write the grants. The beauty of a lot of that is it's non-dilutive funding. So you're not giving away your equity for your startup. You keep it all.
Can you just say what type of funding that was one more time? I feel like it's a dirty word.
Non-dilutive funding. You're not soiling yourself with other shareholders.
I love non-dilutive funding. That's great. So, to wrap it up, we know you need to, even if you have a great idea, how long you could last, like how long you can persevere and get through those hurdles and those milestones matters. We also know knowing your numbers and setting yourself up with that financial feasibility to know, okay, what do I need now? What can I position myself? How much money do I actually need? Do I need any money? We know that having a really strong accounting and financial foundation can make or break your business. We know that there are so many more opportunities, not just here in Australia, but all over the world, that we can access through, your grant finder application. We know that the ePhD gives us opportunities to other types of funding. Non-dilutive funding, I love it. It sounds beautiful. And we also know that you need to have a strong legal foundation. Don't just put I know you own your IP in your PhD, but don't put your IP, like all your IP in your PhD, because that becomes public. Keep some stuff to yourself. Look at the contracts of people who want to invest and how to protect your business and the people who are investing in the long term. So can we please give our panel a round of applause? Thank you so much for telling us the actual real stuff that we need to know when we are navigating that funding space. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so Brian, I'll keep you up here for a moment. Now, if you'd like to take a seat. I love non-dilutive funding. I think it's great. I love it when we can find some money that can help empower our businesses and pay for the amazing people that we are working with, our colleagues, and bring our inventions to life. Can you please tell us, number one, just like a little bit about your background and about how you got to the grant finder?
Okay. I graduated here for my master's at UTS, and for reference, I was rejected from a PhD here.
How rude.
So that might need to be fixed. I'll just say that up front first. So I went to IT for 18 months, hated it, became an entrepreneur, and the one area I fell in love with was actually space technology. So in 2014, flew to Silicon Valley and I started a space company where I could take a photo of the Earth and I could get back chemical data from a distance, right?
Wow.
So I raised money on that. It was great. 2018 came back and it was like, I'll start a new space company. Pandemic happened. We all know how it is. But I did get awarded my patent for it. So I have a patent for orbital reentry vehicles to deploy cell phone towers into disasters during to store communication.
Wow. Oh my God.
So that unfortunately commercially didn't work out. So then I sat down with my team and goes, we're entrepreneurs, how do we split this? How do we make this work? So we split the team into two in the end. The first group was a technical team, and we said, okay, we can do stuff in space, where else can we do it? So we found out that we could extract heat from the ocean to generate electricity. And so that's what my technical team is doing. And the part that I'm here talking about today is I took my biz dev team and says, we made our money raising funds and everything on government funding. So let's take the knowledge and make it available to people. And so when I checked how much resourcing I have in total, I found I'm aware of about $2.5 trillion USD that's available to Australian companies to apply for, and universities.
Is that?
I stopped counting already. Fun fact is like I rarely. It's a lot of more. There's more money out there than that, but this is what I'm aware of. So right now, I've turned that information and putting it into a database to make it free and searchable for everybody. Because I know exactly why the money is created, why it's doing what it's doing, and I understand the processes that fail the government in making the money reach the right places, and how it doesn't help us not being able to find it. So if we can make it accessible, it opens up a whole world of value that doesn't exist from the same resources we already have.
That's really awesome. So how do we access this information? Where do we get this database from? Like, what do we need to do so we could access these trillions of dollars of non-dilutive funding?
Okay, so I got my QR code there. Okay, I didn't know the slide was up. Okay, so that's my QR code. If you scan it right now, it takes you to my website. You can sign up to my mailing list, but you can already search for free all the Australian grants that I found. So we have about $7 billion in open opportunity listing in Australian grants right now, and with about $55 billion listed in our database in total. Now, the rest of the money is going to come in, which give us time to put all of it in, it takes some time. But this is right now the domestic data set. My expertise is international, because I have sought funding out of Singapore, Australia, the US, Korea, and other places in the world. So I understand how other governments are willing to throw money at foreign companies to solve problems, and foreign universities as well.
That's nice. So is anybody here actually looking for funding? Can I see like a show of hands? Yep. Scan this QR code. Phones up, please. Scan this QR code, Because there was what? Did you just say 7 billion?
7 billion currently open listed opportunities.
Non-dilutive funding. I love it. It feels like such a bad word. No, they don't. VCs don't work with non-dilutive. VCs take a shareholding, which is okay because that is the nature of when you're accepting VC money. But if there's a way that you can navigate non-dilutive funding, then I say, why not?
I'll put a little interesting fact. So when we did the work, we were a little surprised. So we found out that the VCs only invested about $4 billion in Australian companies.
7 billion is a big difference to 4.
Yeah. The government contracting for grants and tender space, as I've indexed it right now, it's a $55 billion case. So the government puts in 10 times more money into companies than venture capitalists does. But everybody is chasing the same pot of cash the VCs are putting out because they have good marketing. But this is where more money is. So if I were to ask you to where you want to play, do you want to play in the small pond or the big pond? Exactly.
I like that. Thank you. Thank you very much. Next up, we're going to bring Lina back up to the panel. Thank you, Brian. $7 billion. Mate, I'm going to hit you up for some more of that non-dilutive funding.
Absolutely.
Hook a sister up. Thank you. Lina.
Yes.
Please, when you introduced yourself earlier, you actually are such an inspiring woman. You have done so much throughout your career. You are probably like one of the most overqualified accountants I've ever met in my life. Can you tell us about, some of the pitfalls, some of the things that we should be doing, that we should be knowing, what other opportunities available to us as a researcher, as a small business, or even as a business that's already established?
Okay, so I want to talk about the, I never get these acronyms right. The ESIC.
Yes.
Early Stage Innovation Company. This is a certification that's given by the ATO, which makes your business I'll say business because I just use that word all the time, so you know what I'm referring to. It makes your business more, firstly, credible, because there is a process that you need to go through to obtain this accreditation, but it does make it more attractive to investors, to your VC funding, because the ATO actually gives you, the investors, a 20% rebate on the investment, capped at $50,000 or $1 million if you're a sophisticated investor. And the ATO also gives them capital gains tax concessions if they sell their shares within 1 or 10 years. So it's a pretty attractive little bonus for investors. And although there is a process, what I have found with my clients is that as a startup company, it's not actually that hard to obtain, especially if you are a startup. And we know what the process is. We can make sure that we're ticking those boxes and doing things to make sure that we get the accreditation. So there is a process. It is open for companies that are under 3 years old, or if you're generally under 3, or if you have between 3 and 6 years and you meet certain turnover and expenditure criteria. And then there's obviously another process that you go through in terms of ticking boxes, and there's one method which is a points-based system, and being able to, for example, so it's a 100-point system, but being able to even get the R&D tax incentive, for example, already gives you 75 of those points. So that's where I mean it's not hard and it's not out of your reach, it's just that it's not readily advertised. A lot of people don't know about it, and it's not too hard to obtain.
Yeah, that's right. So Juris Techni is ESIC approved, and we went through that process. And you're right, it's not as hard as what you expect it to be, because you hear so many horror stories, right? And you're right in the fact that it does add an additional layer around the business to give it that credibility. Because I know for my investors, I think they're pretty happy getting 20% back of what they've invested in their tax return for that year. So if you invest $100,000, you get $20,000 back. Is that right?
Yeah, it's an offset, so you can't get back more tax than you actually pay, but that offset, it carries forward for the next year. So if you've got to zero tax, then whatever's left over gets carried forward and you can get a refund the following year.
I like the sound of that. So for everyone who is raising as well, would you say that it's really a great idea to speak to your accountants and ask them about the ESIC process?
Absolutely. I mean, it's really a no-brainer to do that, because if you've got an investor and you've got, company A and B, and I can get an extra bonus by still spending the same amount of money, I mean, unless there's other considerations, obviously there are, but just looking at that alone, I'd go, oh, okay, well,
no-brainer.
Of course, I'm going to go to the one where I can get a better tax benefit.
Yeah, that's right.
So definitely look at, and your tax advisor and accountant. As a startup company, there is just so much information that you need to know. So much about your business planning, your business plan, your metrics. Knowing about cash flow. Knowing your unit economics. So what is your customer acquisition cost? What is your customer life cycle value? What are those ratios? There is a lot of information, and as a startup company, you've got a lot on your plate already. So it's really important to know where you have to invest, and sometimes you have to invest in yourself to obtain that knowledge. So it's really important that you equip yourself with the information and with people that are around to support you, to educate you and to help navigate through this process, because without knowing your numbers and without knowing your cash inflow, your cash outflow, knowing, what your cash burnout rate is, you're not going to be very successful, and you're going to fail a lot sooner than when you think.
But the light at the end of the tunnel is make sure that you surround yourself with really great accountants, financial individuals that can help empower you with that knowledge. You don't know what you don't know, but
that's exactly right.
When you surround yourself with a great advisory, then you have all that information and knowledge to guide you to success.
Well, you're giving yourself the best bet from the onset rather than starting from the wrong foot from the beginning.
That's right. Thank you. I really appreciate that. Who here had heard about ESIC before? Okay, and who didn't know about ESIC? That's a lot of hands. Yeah. See, you don't know what you don't know, and I'm so glad that you came here tonight so that you could discover all of these ways that you could empower yourselves, empower your businesses and your research to be able to access additional funding and be able to create really great, meaningful relationships. So thank you, Lina. Can we get a round of applause for Lina? Thanks,
Lina.
Okay. So before we get to our clinic and matches, somebody snuck in through the back door. Now, this person is probably like one of my favorite people in the world. I know I'm so biased. And there is some really important information that this amazing individual, her name is Jackie Monroe. Jackie, can I please get you to walk up on stage very slowly, super slowly, because wait. I just want you to listen to the song. Jackie's always wanted to be on Broadway. We've got Jackie's image on the panels outside. We've got your Broadway song.
Oh, that's amazing. They say that politics is show business for ugly people, so I really am happy to lean into that stereotype.
Welcome to Broadway.
Thank you, Mona.
Jackie, when we first met, you were telling me about this amazing thing, because you know I'm in AI, right? And then you said, Mona, we want to offer small businesses this really, really cool funding opportunity. Can you please tell us about it?
Absolutely. So I'm in the opposition in New South Wales. I'm the Shadow Assistant Minister for Innovation, the Arts, Digital Government and the 24-hour economy. So lots of fun portfolios full of people like yourselves who are working hard to make their mark, to do good in the world, to strive despite all the challenges that it takes to actually make your idea real. But in the opposition, we understand the way that you're working, and we understand that AI is part of the future of our economy as much as it is our society. So we came up with this plan for a policy that we're taking to the next election. This has been announced by my boss, the Leader of the Opposition, Mark Speakman. We will launch a program called AI for Biz. It is a low-interest loan scheme for small and medium businesses to integrate AI and cybersecurity tools into their business practices. There are about 870,000 small and medium businesses in New South Wales. They employ about 1.7 million people, so you are all part of that cohort. It is critical to our economy that we support small and medium enterprise, and this is a way that we can do it that ensures that the barriers to entry for adopting new technologies are lower, and also ensures that the people who are building AI and cybersecurity tools have a market that is relevant to the growth of our economy. So we want to make sure that both AI businesses and SMBs have the opportunity to grow in New South Wales. This loan scheme, we're still working out the details in the lead up to the next election in just over a year's time, but we also want your feedback. We want your help to develop and fine-tune this policy. So if you have ideas about how this could work for your business, whether you're an AI or cyber business or whether you're an SMB who would love to access a loan, we're thinking between $3,000 and $10,000 as a way to start. It would be implemented through something like, I don't know if you remember during COVID, which we don't like to think about too much, but we had those vouchers that you could access through Service New South Wales. So we're thinking that that is a tool that we can use to make a voucher system for these loans. So we know where this money is being spent, and we also have the opportunity after, say, 4 years to have that loan repaid at a low rate to the taxpayer. We're confident that the return on that investment will far outweigh the initial cost. That's where we're confident that both AI and small business owners are the best placed people to make real change in our economy. You know what you need. We don't want to get in the way of that. We want to help you get there. So that's what we're taking to the next election.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're actually putting your money where your mouth is and giving us the power to make our own decisions.
Absolutely. And I think the beauty of something like Spark Festival is that it highlights just how broad and talented and deep the pool of expertise and enthusiasm is. And someone recently used the term reckless enthusiasm with me, and I think that while that often applies to me, it applies very much to the startup community. I know that you work so hard against all odds, and it's events like this that bring people together, that highlight the incredible skill and talent and passion that is required. And also that you're here to learn. You want to improve what you've got. You want to have a bigger impact. You want to know what you don't know. We can employ a Donald Rumsfeld approach to things, our known knowns and known unknowns. We want to make sure that you've got as much knowledge and as many resources as possible to go forward and thrive.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Can
you.
I get a massive round of applause for Jackie Munro? Thank you.